can continue to finish up your meal, but in the meantime, I'm going to get some music started, and I'm going to start calling some students up. And so we do have a list up here. I don't have my piano player. Do I have Avery out there somewhere? I don't have Avery. We'll have her play if and when she arrives. But that means Kasima Douthit and Ada Libby are going to get us started. You ready? You girls are on fire, right? Where are you? Kasima and Ada, you're starting us off. You ready? Test, test. This is your time. Don't trip on the cord.
Wait, huh?
This is your time to sing. This girl is on fire.
Okay. I thought we were second. I don't know. Avery. Sing. It's on. Mine's on. Okay.
Take it away.
This one. Yep. Oh, here we go. She's just a girl and she's on fire. Hotter than fantasy, lonely like a highway. She's living in blood and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but she's not shaking away. Oh, she's got both feet on the ground and she's burning it down. Oh, she's got her head in the clouds and she's not backing down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire. Looks like a girl, but she's a flame. So flash you burn your eyes, and look the other way. You can try, but you never forget her name. She's on top of the world, on the top of the high sky said, oh, we got our feet on the ground, and we're burning it down. Oh, got your head in the clouds, and we're not coming down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire. Everybody stares as she goes by, 'cause they see the flame that's in her eyes. What's on your blind and open eye? Open nose, the streets are lonely, dirt. It's a lonely world. She's gonna burn, baby, burn, baby. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire.
Thank you very much. All right. And this is where I'm gonna put in a plug for our Leaps program, because these girls have been singing with the Leaps program after school on Thursdays. And we've been doing karaoke this is our 3rd year, so we have a lot of brave, confident people who like to come up and sing, right, Victor? Victor, you're next. Victor Trevento, to the microphone. You want to just find it yourself? Yeah.
It's different, Mom. It's different, Mom. Always.
This day I wanna hear that song. I see you standing there on her own. Discount shoes, store-bought tan, fake flowers and cut-off jeans. Somewhere between that sit and the sun, I'm on fire and I'm born to run. You looked at me and I was done, just getting started. I was singing to you, you were singing to me. I was so alive, never been more free. Fired up my daddy's lighter, sang oh. Stayed there till they forced us out and took the long way to your house. I can still hear the sound of you saying don't go. And I think about you, I think about 17, I think about my G, think about the stars in the sky. Funny how a melody sounds like a memory, like a soundtrack to a July Saturday night. Springsteen, Springsteen. I bumped into you by happenstance. You probably wouldn't even know who I am, but if I whispered your name, I bet there would still be a spark. And back when I was gasoline and so tattooed had brand new, didn't care what your mama think. You put your name on my arm. Maybe is it spring or is it summer, or the guitar sound or the beat of that drum? Yeah, it's late at night on the radio. You know you're millions of miles away when you hit born in the USA. We live those glory days so long ago. When you think about me, you think about 17. Do you think about my OG? Think about the stars in the sky. Funny how a melody sounds like a memory, like a soundtrack to a July Saturday night. Springsteen, Springsteen. Oh, 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 funny how a melody sounds like a memory, like a soundtrack to a July Saturday night. Springsteen, Springsteen, Springsteen. Whoa, Springsteen.
did the old drop mic thing.
That was an accident, though.
It was an accident, but it's off. Did you shut it off? Yeah. Okay, Natalie McGinley, come on up. Test, 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 test. Uh-oh, this one isn't working now. Hello? Uh-oh, this one's not working now. You know how to work this, right? It's not working now. Okay, go again. Yep, you had it.
The girl in the mirror, she's lost her damn mind. She's gotten used to crying all the time. He puts her down, she puts the pedestal high. The girl in the mirror, she's lost her damn mind. She looks just like me, but I don't recognize her. She's got the same eyes, but they're heavy and tired. He just walked in and she's standing right here. She loves the boy more than she loves the girl in the mirror. The girl in the mirror used to know who she was. Now she's up wondering why she's not enough. She put out a fire in the name of young love. The girl in the mirror used to know who she was. She looks just like me, but I don't recognize her. She's got the same eyes, but they're heavy and tired. He just walked in and she's standing right here. She loves the boy more than she loves the girl in the mirror. She's wearing the dress that I wore out tonight, and the girl in the mirror, that's why. She looks just like me, but I don't recognize her. She's got the same eyes, but they're heavy and tired. The way it didn't work, well, it's perfectly clear. I love the boy more than I love the girl in the mirror. You can't love the boy more than you love the girl in the mirror.
It was very, very nice. Let me grab that. That was very pretty, Natalie. Thank you so much. All right, we have a little microphone issue, but I am calling Viola Capizzuto up with her ukulele. And ukulele is another thing that's offered at our LEAPS program. And Viola has written this song herself and also written the music to it. So this is called New Girl. And let's see how this is going to work.
There's a new girl in town. She's so mean. She
Thank you, Viola. That's a beautiful song. All right, we are ready for Ava Ramsdell. We got microphone issues.
I just woke up from a dream where you and I had to say goodbye. And I don't know what it all means, but since I survived, I realized wherever you go, that's where I'll follow. Nobody's promised tomorrow, so I'ma love you every night like it's the last night, like it's the last night. If the world was ending, I'd wanna be next to you. If the party was over and our time on earth was through, I'd wanna hold you just for a while and talk with a smile. If the world was ending, I'd wanna be next to you. Lost in the words that we scream. I don't even wanna do this anymore, 'cause you already know what you mean to me, and our love's the only war worth fighting for. Wherever you go, that's where I'll follow. Nobody's promised tomorrow, so I'ma love you every night like it's the last night, like it's the last night. If the world was ending, I'd wanna be next to you. If the party was over and our time on earth was through, I wanna hold you just for a while and talk with a smile. If the world was ending, I'd wanna be next to you, right next to you, next to you, right next to you. next to you. I wanna be next to you.
Thank you, Ava. All right, we have two pairs of singers coming up. I have Isla Anderson and Viola Capizzuto singing together. We do have a microphone issue. I'm going to turn it on. Here's one. Let's just see if this is going to work. It's making some strange sound.
Test, test.
I'm not sure why it's doing that. This one's not working anymore. Let's try this one.
Test, test.
I'm going to shut this off.
Is this one on?
Yep. Get rid of that split screen. Go ahead. It's just not very big.
Time stood still, just like a photograph. You make me feel like this will last forever. Look into your eyes, I see my whole life. Oh, they say you know it, I don't know it, I don't know. Oh, promise that you'll hold me close, don't let me go. Take my heart, don't break it. Love me to my bones. All this time I've wasted. You were right there all along. You and I start gazing, intertwining souls. We were never strangers. You were right there all along. I lose my mind when I'm around you. How I come alive. When I'm without you, I can't help but feel so lost. I wanna give you all I've got. Oh, they say you know it, I don't know it, I don't know. Oh, promise that you'll hold me close, don't let me go. Take my heart, don't break it. Love me to my bones. All this time I wasted. You were right there all along. You and I start gazing, intertwining souls. We were never strangers. You were right there all along. Ooh, all along. Take my heart, don't break it. Love me to my bones. All this time I wasted. You were right there all along.
Thank you so much. Oh, this one does sound a little different, doesn't it? All right, our last two singers of the night. Let's bring up Anya Libby and Cora Douthit. Come on up.
something wrong with it. It's not. Let's see. There's nothing. It's not bringing up the lyrics.
Where is what's
But
playing?
it's not bringing up the lyrics. Thank you. Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal ya, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. When I call you, never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. Hello, how are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. I hope that you're well. Did you ever make it out of that town? Nothing ever happened. It's no secret that the both of us are running out of time. So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. When I call you, never seem
Thank you so much. All right.
I'm gonna use this microphone.
I like it better. So that wraps up our musical numbers. However, last but not least, another plug for our LEAPS program is that we have cheerleaders and coach Lisa Baker, but we are the only school that has cheerleaders. So let me just tell you, at basketball games, they are a hit. So let's bring on the cheerleaders to do a few cheers for us tonight. Some others will be taking some of our young students to the library for a little coloring during the rest of the presentation. So any young people in the house that would like to leave for this part may go down to the library and color for a little bit. In the meantime, would you like to pull that raffle? Oh, you got it.
This is our 50, well, no, not 50, our water park tickets raffle, and we're gonna see who the winner is. And if you don't get picked, blame this guy right here. He's the one who's picking your card. Keith P. Do we have a Keith P in here?
Keith is here somewhere. Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Congratulations, Keith. I bet those girls are going to love the trip to the water park. And don't forget, we have a bake sale going on back here. And any 8th graders that would like to escort some of these young ones down the hallway, if they'd like to go and color, that would be great. If you'd like to hand off one of your children to one of our 8th graders, anybody that would like to do that. And now we are going to shift gears, and I'm just going to say a few words as Lynn and Morgan get prepared to come up and do a little budget presentation for you. Rearranging the furniture. Okay, girls, get out of here. Okay, I'm just going to say a few words to get us started. Are you ready for me to talk for a minute while you prepare? That sounds good. So, of course, I'm biased, but I happen to love this school, Montgomery Elementary School, and we are part of Northern Mountain Valley Unified Union School District. I've kind of put in a plug for our LEAPS program tonight, which is very, very important to our families. Our families depend on that LEAPS program so that our kids have something to do after school, which is really helpful. And I know some people utilize the morning program as well. So we want to keep our LEAPS program going forever. We love it. And in the meantime, I'd also like to just speak a little bit about some of the initiatives that we've been working on this year. And we have a school-wide plan that we submit to the AOE every year, and two of our important goals this year were listed in there. One of them is our Student Support Center, which we started up for the first time. Our Student Support Center is geared for, hopefully, for students to be proactive if they're feeling like they need something, if they have some anxiety, if they have some worries, if it's a little bit too loud in class and they can't focus, they are allowed to advocate for themselves and take a break in the Student Support Center. And there are all kinds of different things that are multisensory in the Student Support Center. There's an adult in there that has been micro-credentialed with some de-escalation tools and so forth. So it has been going very, very well. Students have been utilizing the Student Support Center. We are keeping a lot of data so that we know how often students go, what their needs are when they go, and we're very, very proud to have that to offer to our students this year. The other initiative that we've been focusing on is what is called MTSS. You've probably heard it before, but it's Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. And FNESU, it's a huge push for us to all kind of fine-tune our MTSS processes. And what this means is that we are monitoring students through assessments to make sure that kids are on track, and those who might not quite be on track will get the interventions that they need to give them that extra push that they need. So our first tier is instruction in the classroom. Our second tier is also in the classroom, and that's what we call reteach, or a double dose of what they've already gotten in the classroom. And then when it gets to tier 3, it's more like a small group with our interventionists, or a one-on-one pull-out with our interventionists. And then when it gets to tier 4, it's more of like maybe a special ed evaluation, or what else do we need to do next. So we are keeping close watch on that these days. We have an MTSS team. We started out meeting every other week, every other Wednesday morning, and found that we weren't able to get enough done, this year being our first year really fine-tuning. So we're meeting every week. There's 5 of us, and we look through all of the data on our students as we progress monitor them. So we're really proud of the success and efforts that we've made towards our MTSS system this year. And those are the 2 big things we're focusing on tonight, and I'm going to end there and turn it over to Lynn and Morgan for our budget presentation. Thank you. You want to? Okay, see if that comes back on. Yep, you're on. I can turn the glittery lights off now, though.
Is my sound good? Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me? All right, I'm Lynn Coda. I'm the superintendent for Franklin Northeast. And I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in Montgomery, and my very first full-time teaching job was right here in Montgomery Elementary down the hall where the preschool is right now. I taught here for 9 years. Actually, no, 11 years. So I definitely have my roots here. I've chosen to raise my family here. I have 4 of my own kids who have all graduated. They attended Montgomery Elementary and they graduated from our FNESU schools, and I'm at that best phase in my life where I have grandchildren now, and I'm a Mimi, and I have my oldest grandchild in one of our preschool classrooms in FNESU. So it is this work that we do in FNESU is tremendously it's tremendously important to me, and I'm very much driven to continue to look at our schools and see how we can improve them over time for the benefit of all of our students.
my name is Morgan Daybell. I am the CFO for Franklin Northeast. I've been in that role for about 12 years, and prior to that, I was on the school board here in Montgomery, when we were a solo district, for about 10 years. And my one son, who has not given me any grandchildren yet, spent all his elementary school years in the school.
Okay, so we are happy to be here, as you've heard. I hope that you all have had an opportunity to see our annual budget information book. It should have come in your mailboxes last week. If not, there are some on the table here. We have a celebration section in our annual report this year, and we're very proud of all that we have to celebrate across Franklin Northeast. A few of the things that we chose to highlight, we have actually 4 state championships between our 2 high schools in the last year. They have been amazing. We also have much to celebrate with our students. We have students that have won Skills USA competitions in plumbing twice. We have a student who is a presidential scholar. We also have someone who is an officer in the Future Farmers of America. She's actually held 2 positions. And we have a former graduate of Richford High School, an NMV student. He was in Berkshire when he was younger, who's received a very prestigious award. He was recognized this year in his freshman year at UVM as one of 2 young people in Vermont with the John Lewis Youth Leadership Award for his commitment to social justice, equity, and inclusion, and that's Marshall Moffitt. So we're very proud of all of our students. And we also have 2 Educator of the Year awards, went to NMV educators, the music teacher at Sheldon, Chris Comstock was our Elementary Teacher of the Year, and our Above and Beyond Award went to Michelle Plouffe, who is the Administrative Assistant at Bakersfield Elementary. So in your annual report, we have some data about literacy and math performance data for all of our students in grade 1 through grade 12. So I won't go into depth, it's in your book. I'll just tell you a little bit how to interpret it. So, thank you. So you see there are 2 lines together. The first line in that first group of 2 is fall data. The second line is winter data. I'm going to come back to first grade because that doesn't actually look like it reflects growth, but I'm going to tell you why. When you go on to second grade, you can see that the green line grew from fall to winter, and the other lines started to shrink. So what this data tells us in green is that is the percentage of students who are at or above proficiency in literacy. The yellow line represents students who are almost there. They're really, really close to being proficient. The orange line, those are students that, when Sandy talked about her MTSS team, those would be students that we would be talking about interventions for those students. And in red, those are students who are pretty far below what the standard is, and we'd be talking about more intensive intervention. So our goal is to grow the green and shrink the other colors, and that's what we're doing through our work in MTSS. And you can see across the board when you look side by side, we're seeing growth from fall to winter in most of our grade levels. We have adopted a new literacy program across the supervisory union, and we're definitely seeing growth. We're seeing that this program is much more rigorous than our previous program, and we're hearing firsthand from teachers that they're feeling the difference with students. So that's something that we're very happy with. So I'm going to come back to first grade, and we talked about how this really didn't look like we were showing growth. And in our assessment plan, we take this STAR literacy assessment, and our kindergarten students actually take the early literacy assessment in the fall because they're not yet readers. And so in the mid-year, a lot of our students actually shifted. They grew enough to be able to take the STAR assessment. So it's a much more rigorous assessment. So we're not comparing apples and apples there. So we're going to be looking at growth from this winter data until the spring. The next visual represents the same type of information, but this is STAR mathematics. That's also an area that we've been working on across the supervisory union for many, many years. And we're pleased with the growth that we are having with mathematics. We're not where we want to be in either literacy or mathematics, but we're definitely seeing solid growth patterns. So last year when we were at one of these budget informational meetings, someone said, "What is Northern Mountain Valley? I don't really understand that." So I'm going to just take a moment to help you understand. Vermont has kind of a strange school governance structure. So Franklin Northeast, that is the supervisory union that we are all in. Franklin Northeast isn't just one district. It's a supervisory union because we have to have two different districts. So you are here tonight to hear a budget proposal for the Northern Mountain Valley District. That's the district for Bakersfield, Berkshire, Montgomery, and Sheldon. That's our pre-K through 8th grade district, which means you operate those grade levels in this district, and you pay tuition for the 9th through 12th grade students. So that's the choice part. So we didn't merge back in Act 46 because we wanted to maintain that choice part for our high school students. So you have 4 schools, pre-K through 8, and we educate 828 students. So the budget that you're going to hear about tonight is targeted at those 828 students in those 4 schools.
We start the budget process by looking at what the enrollment history has been for the last 5 years in all 4 of our schools, and then projecting out what we think is going to happen over the next 5 years. And I will say from the top, we're giving you a very high-level view of this, what's going on in the schools and what's going on with the budget in this presentation and in the annual report. If you want more detailed information on either what's happening in schools or what's going into making this budget, you can go to our website, fnesu.org, and look for FY26 budget link at the top. You can also go to any of the schools' websites if you want more information and their more detailed school report.
And there are QR codes in the books that you're looking at right now that you could also use.
So on this graph, you'll see on the left-hand side are the last 4 years of enrollments, and those are going into the schools and counting what kids are enrolled on October 1st each year. We then are projecting out for the next 5 years. And you'll see both in Sheldon and in Montgomery and in Bakersfield Elementary as well at the bottom, we're projecting some pretty significant growth over the next 5 years. In Berkshire, we're thinking things are going to be a little bit level for a few years before they start to move up. It's important to keep that in the context that we have statewide, and what you're probably hearing in the news over the last 10 years as a state, we're losing kids in areas of the state, especially southeastern Vermont. They're seeing some pretty precipitous declines in all their schools. That's not the reality that we have up here, and so just keep that in mind as we get into both building this budget and what the governor has proposed education look like in the future. The annual meeting vote is going to be on town meeting day, and everything this year is by ballot. That was a change that was made last year. And so the first 3 articles will be electing officers of the district. Article 1 is a moderator. There's nobody running for that position on the ballot. There is a space to write people's names in. It's really a position that doesn't get used anymore since we've moved to Australian ballot. Article 2 is to elect a district clerk. Emily Fecto, who is the town clerk for Berkshire, has filled that role since we were first unified 6 years ago. She will appear on the ballot, and there is also a space to write in if you want to write someone in for that. There are then 3 school director positions that are up. 2 are slotted for people who reside in Montgomery. 1 is slotted for someone who resides in Bakersfield. We get to vote on all 3 of those seats. So it's not that you're just restricted to vote for the folks in Montgomery. In Bakersfield, Audrey Shea is running. She's a newcomer and is running for an open seat. In Montgomery, Michelle Schapp is running to fill out the rest of a term that was vacated when Kat Barnard took the delinquent tax collector job here in town and was no longer able to serve on the school board. And then the last seat, Mary Niles, who's currently the chair of the Montgomery School Board and the FNESU School Board, is running for re-election to her seat for 3 years. The next article is the money article. So this is the one that gives the school board the authority to spend money for the following school year. They're asking for permission for $24.3 million to operate those 4 schools and to pay those tuition bills for high school students for the next year. The second sentence is a sentence that up until about 5 years ago appeared on the ballot. It was taken away by the legislature, and they're now, they've passed a bill to make us put this back on. What it does is it tells you what the per pupil ed spending amount is, or the amount of money we spend divided by the number of kids, 11,718, and we will go into that number in more detail soon. And then how much that has changed from the previous year. In this case, the 11,718 appears to be up 10.6%. We'll get into the details of that and kind of explain why that's maybe a little deceptive. We also have an article on the town meeting day ballot asking for permission to take half of the money that was left over at the end of 2024 and put it into a capital reserve fund. This is an article that we put on most years. We're trying to take that money away and put it aside for things like a boiler project that's coming up in Berkshire next year, or if a school needs a roof redone, or something more major than just cleaning and painting the classrooms. The other half of that leftover money, another $51,000, is going into the budget to lower your tax rate for next year. And we'll cover that again in more detail as we go on.
So when we built this budget, there were several things that we took into consideration that really drove the change from last year's spending to this year's spending. The first is you're a tuitioning district. So when you have high school students, you have to pay the tuition for all of those high school students. And this year we have more 8th graders going into high school than 12th graders graduating from high school. So you're sending 82 8th graders while only 67 are graduating. So you have a net gain there that's going to drive up your tuition cost. So when you take in the additional students and you also take the increase in high school tuitions across all the schools that we send students to, that is a driver of $928,898 in the budget change from last year until this year. So before we do anything, tuition costs are driving this budget up almost $1 million. We are also in negotiations. The board settled with our support staff for this current year after last year's budget was approved. So we had to take that information into consideration when we built this budget. The board is also in negotiations with both support staff and with the teachers for next year and beyond. So they had to take that into consideration as well when they were building this budget. So increase in projected staffing costs are up about $594,000. So that is embedded in this budget. Also, things that are drivers across the state, we have, it used to be way back when we used to negotiate health benefits in addition to salary and other benefits, and we haven't done that for quite some time in Vermont. So the state actually negotiates for the health benefits, and we have the VHI health plan that has been up double digits for the past 3 years in a row. This year it is up 12.6%, so that alone is driving the budget up more than $250,000. There are other health benefits like dental and long-term disability and life insurance that are also cost drivers in this. We also have 2 schools that have been identified for PCB remediation. So the school that's most impacted is Berkshire Elementary School. So just a reminder, that was something the legislature passed several years ago that required all schools in Vermont to be on a testing schedule for PCBs. We had 2 schools, Montgomery and Bakersfield, that did not have to test because they were newer, but the other 2 schools did. So in Bakersfield, we've had 2 classrooms that we can't use for 2 years because they have elevated levels. So when they made that decision to test, they set aside money to remediate those schools. The unfortunate part for us is that the money is gone. It has all been spent, and there's no more money that has been set aside at the state level for PCB remediation. So because we tested positive, we have to figure out how to now remediate it. So that's something that when Morgan talked about us thinking about capital reserve funds, those funds are going to help us remediate that. And then if the legislature passes more money to go towards PCB remediation, we will hopefully be able to access that. I will be transparent. There are a lot of people in line ahead of us. There's kind of a ranked priority list. We also have Sheldon Elementary that tested positive for PCBs that did not result in us having to close any spaces, because the rooms that were positive in Sheldon are really ancillary rooms that are around the gym, in the kitchen, and people don't spend enough time in their day there, and they're not at the highest levels where you can no longer use those spaces. So we will have to address that eventually as well.
And this chart just shows the increase and kind of splits out what's making it up. So you'll see on the right-hand side, about half of it, or that roughly $1 million, is in high school tuition. About a third is teacher, staff, and salaries. Most of the rest of it is health insurance premiums. And then there's a little slice of just under 5%. And those are every other increase to the budget. So that would be increase in supplies or increase in fuel costs. Increase in the supervisory union assessment, which covers food service, it covers transportation, covers special ed costs. That is all kind of stuck in that little green wedge up top.
So when we build this budget, we build it as a whole district. So this is the collective budget for all 4 of those schools. So overall, we have a reduction of 4.4 staff members. And in that total, we have reduced 5 paraeducator positions, 2 at Bakersfield and 1 each in the other 3 schools. So I want to just talk about that for a moment. One of the things that we are hearing, and we'll talk about later, is the importance of us working at scale. We'll talk about that under the governor's plan. So for a couple of years, we have been receiving a lot of information about staffing to scale and really looking at precisely what you need in your staffing pattern. So for a long time, we've had the liberty of, if someone leaves a role, we've refilled it because we've had that role. We aren't in the position where we can do that anymore. So we're having to really look and audit, okay, if someone is leaving a role, what's the need that they're leaving behind, and do we have enough staff members to be able to cover? So if there's a student, mostly paraeducators are connected to students with IEPs. So we're looking at staffing more precisely with the paraeducators. So we've been able to achieve this through attrition, so we've not had to let anyone go from those positions. There are 2 increases in this budget. One is a STEAM teacher, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And last year, this district built in 1 full-time STEAM teacher for Sheldon because they had grown so much they didn't have enough elective teachers to cover all of their mandatory prep time that they have in the contract for their teachers. So that STEAM teacher has done some really amazing things at Sheldon. So the board wanted to make sure that students in the other 3 schools have opportunities like that as well. So we're hiring another full-time STEAM teacher that will spend time in all 3 of the other schools. And there's also there's a decrease in a half-time art position at Sheldon and an increase of 0.6, so 3 days a week in art for Berkshire.
We'll go fairly quickly through how we go from a warned budget to a tax rate. And I'll say again that there's a lot more detail that you can download from our website, fnesu.org, if you want to really get into the weeds of this. We start out with the budget that the board has put forward, and hopefully we, the voters, will approve next week, of $24 million. We subtract out of that any local revenue we know we get. On this side in this district, it's primarily some categorical aid we get to help to educate students who don't hear English spoken at home, English language learners. That's the bulk of the $89,000. The $51,000 is the other half of that money left over from 2024 that I mentioned. So we're asking for 51 to go into the capital reserve fund. The other 51 is going to come in here, and that will help to reduce the tax rate. We take the budget minus the money we know we're gonna get, minus the money we know we have in the bank, we come up with a $24.1 million figure, which the state refers to as education spending. And that's basically the number that when the budgets are all passed and we get to July 1, we're gonna tell the state we need $24.1 million to run the schools and pay the tuition payments. They're obligated to send that under the current system, and we'll talk about how that may be changing under the governor's plan. To get to a tax rate, we take that education spending amount and we divide it by the number of kids. This is called the long-term weighted ADM. We don't actually have over 2,000 kids in this district, but what the state does is they look at the kids that we do have and they let us count some kids more than others. So they know that it counts more to educate a high school student than an elementary school student. We get to count high school students a little bit more. Know that it costs more to educate kids who live in poverty, so we get a bump up for poverty numbers. We get a bump up for living in a rural area, and knowing that if your population's spread around, you might have more transportation costs, for example. We get a little bit more money for some of the small schools that we operate. So the state will calculate this number, and they present it in roughly December, January timeframe. And we take the amount of money that we're gonna spend from the ed fund divided by the number of kids that they say we have, and we get to this per pupil ed spending amount of $11,700. We'll show you in a few minutes how that compares to other districts across the state. That figure, that 11,718, is then divided by what's called the dollar yield, which is a number that the legislature sets every year, usually in May, probably this year in June, given all the drama down there right now. And dividing the spending by the yield gets a district level tax rate. So this $1.37 would be the rate for all 4 of our towns. Before we go on to how that translates to the rates you see on your tax bill, I want to point out that according to their calculation, we've lost 35 kids. Most places in the state have seen a loss this past year. We actually probably have more actual kids, but because of the way the feds are measuring poverty coming out of COVID, a lot of people had been allowed to stay on benefits and they're starting to fall off. Most districts in the state have seen a loss of their long-term weighted ADM tied to that change in poverty. The problem for us is that when this number goes down, the per pupil ed spending number goes up, and that's part of the driver why we're spending low compared to the rest of the state, and the increase isn't that great, but that per pupil spending looks big at the 10% figure. The state then takes that $1.37 and wants to apply it to all 4 towns, knowing that all 4 towns have grand lists that have different levels of accuracy. Each town reappraises at a different time frame. Some towns are seeing much more growth in terms of what houses are actually selling for compared to others. And so they've calculated what's called the CLA, and they will divide the district tax rate by the CLA to get the homestead tax rate, or the tax rate that we actually see on our bills. You can see there's a range between the 4 towns because those CLAs are different. So we've got $1.44, $1.42 in Sheldon is the lowest, up to $1.55 this year in Montgomery. And on the next slide, you will see sort of why they use that CLA. So in this case, we'll start with Montgomery. If you have a house that your tax bill says is appraised at $100,000, last year the state calculated that if you sold it on the fair market, it would actually be almost $130,000. This year, almost $157,000. Comparing that to other towns, that $100,000 house in Montgomery is worth $157,000. In Sheldon, it's only worth $144,000. That's probably the function of our grand list being old, and also housing sales in our town and also in Berkshire this past year have been a lot hotter than they have in our other 2 towns. So you can see, again, each of our 4 towns starts with that same district level tax rate, and then the CLA kind of puts them in different positions. So last year, Berkshire and Montgomery had the lowest tax rates in the district. Sheldon and Bakersfield were a little bit higher. This year in FY26, things haven't really moved in Sheldon and Bakersfield, but both Berkshire and Montgomery have shot up. And again, that's because sales in those 2 towns over the last 3 years have been doing much better than in the first 2 towns. So as we kind of develop the budget, hopefully it passes, but if it doesn't and we need to bring it down, the relative position of these 4 dots is going to stay the same, although they may move up or down depending on what we do on town meeting day and depending on what the legislature does with that yield rate. These charts, again, they're on the website as well, but we'll show on the right side what folks in our town will pay if they pay property tax based just on the property value, and then what they pay if they pay based on their income. And probably across our district, maybe a third of families pay based on income, so it's not insignificant. So $150,000 house in Montgomery, tax bill anticipated to be $2328. That $150,000 house, if you're paying on income, let's say your household income is $100,000, you're not paying the full 23, you're paying only $2,100. And for folks who are watching on TV or online, in this slide deck and then in the backup on our website, you can see that for Sheldon, Bakersfield, and Berkshire as well.
So I want to talk a little bit about how our spending per pupil, that weighted average that Morgan was talking about, compares with spending in other districts around the state. So I'll start with this visual here on the left. So if you will, each of those lines represents one of Vermont's school districts. It starts at the bottom with the lowest spending school district that spends around $8,000 per weighted pupil, and it goes all the way to the top with the highest spending school district that's somewhere around $18,000 per weighted pupil. So in Vermont, we have what's called the Brigham decision, and that's about how we fund our public schools. That was a Supreme Court challenge and ruling that stated that we need to have an educational system in Vermont that provides all of our students with a substantially equal educational opportunity. But when you look at that graphic there, I will tell you from being the superintendent that's on this end of the continuum, it's very hard to be able to say that I could provide your students with a substantially equal educational opportunity to the ones that are able to spend that much more per weighted pupil. So I'm going to tell you where we are. Right here at the very bottom, sixth from the bottom is our other district in FNESU. That's the Enosburg-Richford district. Above them in blue, that's us, the Northern Mountain Valley. So that is 10,591. This is for this current year. Morgan's projections are for next year. So the red lines represent where our other Franklin County partner schools are, those other districts. The first black line here represents the average of all Franklin County schools, and the second black line represents Vermont's statewide average in per pupil weighted spending. So there's a pretty big discrepancy there, and that's one of the functions of the education system that we'll talk about in the end in the governor's proposal. So as I mentioned, we are very low spending compared to some of our partners, and because of that, we have made very strategic moves in how we staff our central office. And we've really targeted pushing in supports to schools, one, to support the schools and the teachers, and also to support the principals, so the principals can do more of the work of being an instructional leader and supporting the students. But we've also recognized that this isn't really enough funding for us to be able to do what we need to do to educate our nearly 2,000 students and take care of our 8 school buildings. So we have people that are constantly looking for competitive grants. So in this slide, we pulled out some examples just based on the Northern Mountain Valley District. In the book that you're looking at, there are examples of the other side as well. So some of the things I will point to today is that we had an LED light project that we did across the supervisory union in all buildings except for one. These lights are a result of that. We received $111,000 in grant money to be able to do that project. We also have a 21st Century Learning Grant. So I'm guessing many of you in the room have students who attend our LEAPS after school program or our summer program. And I think that in conversations with some people, I think there's a wide belief that all schools offer that, and that's actually not true. Only about half of the schools in the state of Vermont offer this kind of after-school program in their schools, and we are able to do this because of the grant funding that we receive. We do have some money in our budget that goes towards kind of matching money that goes towards our after-school program, but the grant that we're currently under was a $578,000 grant. So that allows us to offer after-school programming in all of our buildings during the year and during the summer. We actually, there's a rating that you get for the quality of your programs, and this year we were the only district in the state that was given what's called a pass-through grant. So we were automatically renewed without having to reapply for that grant funding, so we're very proud of that. And right before this, these books went to print, we had 2 more grants that we were awarded. The first was an LEAPS After School and Summer Program grant. We had the Bakersfield Summer Project grant was something that had expired last year, and we were scrambling a little to figure out how are we going to be able to fund Bakersfield next summer. This grant came through, and we have that funding for the next 42 months, so we're in a much better place now. We also, before I tell you about Berkshire's grant, I want to tell you about Richford Junior Senior High School's grant. So we just put in a new pellet boiler at Richford Junior Senior High School, and we were able to get $600,000 in competitive grants to be able to do that project. We just got, and I think you would call it an energy audit through Efficiency Vermont, where they reported out that we're expected to save $67,000 in expected heating costs annually at Richford Junior Senior High School, and $1.3 million over 20 years. So that's a pretty good return on investment. In Berkshire, we are in a not great situation with the boilers, and I will say I was the principal there for 11 years, and when I took over, I started there 19 years ago. The principal at the time handed me the keys and said, those boilers are on their way out. They're just limping along, and they're the same boilers, so we really, really have to take care of those boilers. So we just received a $200,000 grant to take care of those boilers, and we're expecting that there's likely another grant coming. So we'll be working on that this summer. One thing I'll point out too, and it's in your book under FNESU Innovates, we also, schools across the country received grant funding from the federal government after COVID. It was called ESSER relief money. And we set a lot of that money aside to purchase highly engaging materials and resources to push into all of our schools. And if you've been into a library space in any of our buildings, we've put a lot of investment into those library spaces. We've tried to make those spaces where kids can create and collaborate. And, you know, we had, I told the story last night in Sheldon, at our annual meeting last year, I tried to move the table to make space for someone and the leg fell off. And so it had been, some of the things that we had in our buildings were quite old. So we have new tables, new chairs, we have maker spaces, we have 3D printers, lots of things that we wouldn't have been able to afford without the grant opportunity. So in your book, it tells you a little bit about that.
And before we leave the grants piece, just to keep people informed, and there's nothing specific in the budget to this yet. We are operating, as far as I know, we still don't have a federal budget approved for the year that ends in about 6 months. That money, that budget funds a lot of the grant programs that we get each year starting next year, so starting on July 1. So some of the things that we're watching are consolidated federal grants. There's a grant stream called Title I. We get about $1 million of that. The current administration has proposed cutting that back dramatically. Title II money, another stream in the federal grants, we get about $250,000. and they've proposed cutting that out completely. We get some special ed funding through the feds, about $750,000. We don't know the future of that. The 21st Century Learning Grant that funds that LEAPS program, between $500,000 and $750,000 each year, is another one that may get federal scrutiny. And then finally, we're expecting cuts to the food service program, and we get at least $1 million in federal money there. And so we may be scrambling this budget year. We may be presenting some changes next budget year as we react to what happens on the federal level. There is a new article on the ballot this spring asking for permission to establish a tuition reserve fund. So this would operate similar to a capital reserve fund, where if we have a good year where we have fewer tuition kids that we had to pay for and had money left over, we might transfer money into that tuition reserve fund. If we generally have money left over at the end of the year, similar to asking you to put it in a capital reserve fund, we might put it into this fund. And the idea would be that in the future, when we have a year where we're projecting an extra $1 million in tuition bills coming in, if we know that that's kind of a one-year bump up, we could take money out of this tuition reserve fund and kind of slow the increase of the tax rate over a couple of years.
So if you have been watching the news or reading anything online, anything local, you have probably heard about the governor's plan to transform education governance in the state of Vermont. So last year, 33 school district budgets in Vermont were defeated on town meeting day, and it was very clear that the message that taxpayers were sending is that education spending is too high, our tax rates are too high. So the governor is proposing a plan that he suggests will bring down the costs of education across the state. So I'm going to share a little bit of information about that. Morgan and I are following this very closely. We'll be happy to answer questions about the budget or the plan at the end. So here is a visual. This right here, this map of Vermont represents what our current school district structure is. So way up here at the top, this is us. In Franklin Northeast, we're our own supervisory union with those two districts. So each of those shapes is another unique either supervisory union or a supervisory district. So there are 52 SUs or SDs, 119 school districts, 287 schools, and we educate 83,733 publicly funded students in Vermont. So the first part of the governor's plan is to talk about governance. So instead of having these 52 supervisory unions or supervisory districts, his plan involves shifting to this map here. So as you can see, there is Champlain Valley region. I always get these confused. The Winooski Valley region in the middle, the Northeast Kingdom, the Southwest region, and the Southeast region. And that structure, that map really was originally designed by the Vermont Superintendents Association, not related to school district governance, but just related to, we have a requirement to have regional superintendents meetings, so I have a team that I work with, and this map was originally developed to determine which meeting I go to. So I go to the Champlain Valley region because that's where we were assigned. So this dark green part of the map is where Franklin Northeast would be assigned to. So that is the largest district in the state. It would go from Richford all the way down to Shoreham. It would be about 35,000 students in that district. The other districts range from 10,000 to 13,000, so about a third the size of the Champlain Valley. So in theory, you would go from 52 superintendents in central offices to 5. You would have one school board for each of those regions with 5 members on each of those boards with proportional representation. So not every community is going to have a board member. There'd be 5 for the totality of, right now those are 17 separate and distinct districts, and there'd be 5 total board members there. Those board members would be, I will say Mary Niles is here, our board chair, and Mary there is this teeny tiny stipend associated with being on a school board, but I will tell you that she loses money every year just in gas alone with the amount of meetings that school boards have. So thank you for your service, Mary. Under this plan, those board seats would be quasi-professional seats, so it would be more than a stipend. I'm not clear yet how much more that would be. We've been in this little bit of a limbo place where we've been waiting for more details on the governor's plan because until today, there was no language, there was no bill associated with it. The bill dropped today. Can you lift that up, Courtney? It's 176 pages, so we've spent a good chunk of the day going through that bill. Morgan and I were watching the legislative session today for almost 3 hours, trying to understand what is included in there, so we're still learning. I'll have Morgan talk a little bit about timeline now.
So the timeline that he's proposed is very aggressive, and again, as we weed through that, we may find that some of these milestones have changed a bit. But in the bottom left is the current year that we're in. Really, the only focus for the rest of this year, the rest of the 5 months, is the legislative process working through his proposal and coming up with a bill and in theory passing that for this year. The purple box on top would be FY26, the year starting in January. We would be operating under the budget that we hope that you pass next week. The governor has said that he would throw some extra money into the ed fund to bring tax rates down for that year. So that's not taken into account in the numbers I've shown you, but maybe those tax rates would drop 2 or 3 cents. The agency would also start to work on their rulemaking and their planning and coming up with the metrics that they're gonna judge districts and schools in the future. In the middle and the bottom is FY27. That would be the year starting in July of 2026. The school board would be elected for those 5 districts. They would start to work on their budgets. The old school districts would prepare to close out, and we would not have a budget vote that year. The state would say, you can have your FY26 budget plus 3% is the number I've heard, and that will change throughout the legislative session. But there won't be a budget vote anymore. In the top, in 2027, 28, FY28 year, the districts go live. So January 1, 2027, those new districts would be operating all the schools in the state. We would also have a new funding formula. So currently, as we've kind of gone through tonight, the board, with the approval of the voters, tells the state this is how much money we need to run our schools next year. Under a foundation formula, the state is going to tell the board this is how much money we're giving you to run your schools next year. There will be some mechanism if boards want to go out and ask for more money from the voters, but it's the information flow is much different. It's the state saying this is how much you can spend. There will be school advisory councils, and they're still working on this concept, but basically they are school level, sort of like PTOs or PTAs. The main duties that they would have would be to help the board develop a very small part of the budget. So there'd be some local control of that budget, even though the amount is no longer under local control. And then they would also help inform the school improvement plan, which I'm gonna punt to Lynn to explain.
So it's a federal requirement, so we don't know if we'll still be receiving federal money by then, but right now, each school has to create a continuous improvement plan, and the supervisory union does as well, and the board has to approve our continuous improvement plan in order to get our grant funding.
And then in 2028 and beyond, they are saying that we will be rescaling the school portfolio, which is code for closing some schools. Those rules that they're working on in 25, 26 are likely going to be the yardstick that they use to determine when they feel a school needs to be closed.
So just 2 things I'll add. One thing that was really clear in today's presentation, that under this plan, there is a proposal around class size, and I talked to you about that a little bit earlier. The proposal would go live in the 26-27 school year, so about a year and a half from now. And that would expect that all schools have an average class size in K through 5 of 15 and an average class size in 4 through 12 of 25. So that's substantially different than where we are right now.
And the other major change, especially for our towns, is around school choice for high school. They still seem to be working out some of the details, but they would have, they're proposing that there would be a lottery system. So every kid would be assigned to a high school, but there would be what's called school choice schools within that district, and a certain percent of kids could choose to go to one of those schools. They're still working out the details on how those kids are picked. The school boards would have the authority to determine how many schools would be counted as school choice schools, but it's pretty clear that we're not going to be sending tuition money to Alberta or to Quebec or to New York or Rhode Island, Massachusetts under this scheme. It would be school choice within those districts.
So the governor's proposal is a proposal at this point. It has not been approved. It has a long way to go through the legislative process. We're sharing this information just to make sure that you're paying attention, because this is something that will impact all of us. I don't disagree that we have to really look at how we're funding education in Vermont. We have to look at all of it, that's clear. I don't personally believe that we're going to land at the 5 district level. I think that it'll be higher than that, but it certainly will not be at 52. And we will see shifts, most likely around class sizes and school sizes as well. But we'll go to the last slide and then take questions. We have town meeting polling locations. We hope that all of you will either go vote on Tuesday or go vote early at the town clerk's. The polling location in Montgomery is at the town hall, and they are open from 10 until 7. So we know that was a little long. We were hoping we can make it shorter this year, but it's a little hard with the governor's plan to be shorter. So we welcome any questions any of you have. So the faces of people that are ready to go home, I think. We are willing to stick around if you have any questions or comments. We'll hang out here. Thank you for coming out. Hard to follow those cute kids that were singing and cheering for us, but we appreciate you all coming out. Thank you.